you want to pick up the Rockies pitchers. Andrew Heaney, this is for more shallow league. He's available in about a third of CBS leagues. A lot of strikeouts, 140 strikeouts in 120 innings. You can bank those this week. 2-start at L.A. Angels, his former team, and versus Baltimore. That's a good start there. And then next week at New York Mets. That sounds pretty good. Alec Mills, this week, 1 start versus Pittsburgh. He had a crappy 7 earned run game against Kansas City, but before that, in 11 starts, he had only given up 2 runs or less. Not a lot of quality starts because he doesn't go all that long. Most of the starts 5 innings or less. But, hey, you never know. It's against Pittsburgh. Don't count on a win. I mean, he's only won 3 games in 11 starts, but you never know versus Pittsburgh. If you need a filler, I think that's a start that won't hurt you. All right. Any other pitchers before we move on? Pretty thin also here, right?
Yes, very thin.
Yeah. All right, we got one mailbag question coming here, and I'm going to throw this to Ruvain. Ruvain's the baseball card guy. As you might have heard the news, looks like Topps lost its license with MLB. Long-standing relationship now down. But the question is here, talking about baseball cards and prospects. Can one affect the other, and can we learn anything from it? Let's start with you, Ruvain.
I'm not sure. I always thought there was a correlation between how the prospect is doing and the baseball card value or their pick. It's just very hard to know. I mean, this year when Topps Series 2 came out, one of the top cards in the actual set is the Alex Kirilloff. So it does show that they know what they're talking about. But I always wondered if there was this correlation between the value of a baseball card, a prospect, and how they're actually thought of in the baseball community. And that's why I thought this was an excellent question. I have no idea what the answer is or if there's any research done on this. And I thought, James, you're the perfect person to answer this.
Yeah, so a lot of people subscribe to my rankings for collecting baseball cards, not for Dynasty, because it's a good way of sort of getting on top of like which rookie or which prospect card I should really be chasing. Like obviously, like when the Jason Dominguez like Bowman card dropped a couple years ago, like that was just like a huge deal because of all the hype surrounding him. But like you're seeing, like I get like card collectors are hitting me up all the time, just like, what do you think about like this guy versus this guy? Like, does this guy have a chance to be a top 10 prospect? Like that type of thing. So I'm very familiar with the card industry when it comes to just the prospect game is sort of like a stock market, like which guys are really ascending into that top 10, top 5 territory. Like I hear a lot about that from card collectors, but that question on the whole is certainly, pretty challenging and complicated.
And my son actually collects baseball cards, and he knows all the prospects because he's watching these breaks, he's watching these packs being open, and he's seeing these prospects. So he's getting to know the next generation of baseball players through the baseball cards, like I did when I was younger. I remember my Brian Taylor card. I think everyone had Brian Taylor, if you know what I'm talking about, the pitching prospect for the Yankees, and everyone thought he was going to be the next big thing, and that was a big bust and everything like that. But when it comes to the baseball cards, you can learn the players, you can read the stats on the back. I mean, it's a there's a big market out there right now, and it's just very enjoyable to be able to have a card and have the prospect do well. And another thing is, I think when it comes to baseball cards, it's just like what the teams are doing. They try to get as many prospects as possible and hopes one of them pans out. You never know who's going to hit, you never know who's going to bomb, and if you have a whole bunch of them, your chances of having a hit is a lot better.
Yeah. I used to collect cards as a kid. I haven't really been into it ever since. My father was a collector. My father back in the 50s collected quite a few cards, and one year he went to a sleepaway camp, and my grandmother, his mother, was cleaning up, and she threw a lot of it out. And my father was like, no, why'd you throw it out? Those cards would have been worth quite a bit. He did manage to save some. I believe he has a 57 Mantle in very, very good condition. That's worth a couple thousand. But baseball cards it is. All right. Ruvain, injury time. what is the injury update for this late August episode?
Okay, we'll start with an actual prospect, Tristin Mckenzie. He was put on the IL with right shoulder fatigue. They don't know how bad it is or how long he's going to shut down for. Logan Allen was recalled, and he'll probably take his spot in the rotation for Cleveland. Jack Flaherty was placed again on the IL with a strained right shoulder because his velocity was down in his last outing when they took him out. Did not look good, and the chances of him coming back are probably pretty slim. Another guy whose chances of coming back are pretty slim is Dylan Bundy. He also went out on the IL with a right shoulder strain. We don't know how bad it is, but when shoulder injuries hit, it's a long time to be able to build up again. And because the Angels aren't going anywhere, I can't see the Angels pushing him too much. Eduardo Escobar is on the IL with a strained right hamstring. Brewers manager Craig Counsell said Escobar will miss about 2 weeks. Luis Urias will see an increase in playing time while he is out, and some updates on some players. We always mention him, unfortunately. Jacob deGrom, he was cleared to start throwing again. He may come back, and they're going to try to build him up. He'll probably end up playing the single-A St. Louis Cardinals again because he just dominated them last time, and they're trolling him on Twitter right now, which is really funny. But he can possibly come back mid-September. He may not be a starter at the time because I don't know if he had to build up then, but that's something to watch for. Another Met pitcher, Noah Syndergaard, he's starting his rehab tonight, supposedly, and he will be coming out of the bullpen, so that's something to watch for. Corey Kluber, he's pitching in rehab starts right now, and his target return is actually the first week of September. And another guy I have to mention is Mike Trout. He's participating in on-field activities. He's feeling better, according to Joe Madden, the Angels manager, but he is still not ready for a rehab assignment. It's hard to see getting much out of Mike Trout at this point, which is a very sad thing to say.
Well, wanted to thank James Anderson for coming on the show. You know, James is the lead prospect writer over at Rotowire. He just dropped his top 400, which must have been really complicated this year as the minors didn't happen last year and people are just getting into it. So check that out over at Rotowire, top 400 that just dropped. James, thanks so much for being on the show. Why don't you tell us where we can read your stuff, reach you, and all things James Anderson?
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned the top 400 that just got a big update. That was a ton of work. I would strongly recommend checking it out. I mean, like you alluded to, there's been more kind of big time pop up prospects this year than in most years because it's been so long since we saw a lot of these guys. But you can find me on Twitter at RealJRAnderson. I tweet out all my podcasts, all my links and stuff like that from there. Clay Link and I do a prospect podcast every Wednesday. You can find that if you just search Rotowire Prospect Podcast or just Rotowire Baseball Podcast. But yeah, I mean, thanks so much for having me on, guys.
Sure. Are you still doing the SiriusXM show?
That's a kind of 6 months at a time. We do baseball from January through June, and then it goes football July through December. So we'll be back with that in January.
Right. No, great stuff. And, you know, as you saw this show, I really didn't do any of the talking here. We're not big prospect guys. We're not big dynasty players on this show, but a lot of you are. And even if you aren't like us, it's good to know the top guys and good to be aware of the pipeline of baseball. And obviously, James knows his stuff. So we're very, very honored to have had you on the show. Thanks again, James.
Hey, thanks. This was a lot of fun, guys. Thanks for having me on.
All right, Ruvain, how about you? Why don't you tell us where we can find you, read you, and all things Ruvain Guy?
You can follow me on Twitter at MLB Injury Guru, where I tweet out injury updates on a daily basis. Who's the next guy up, how long they're going to be out for, whether they're going to be out for the rest of the season, actually, at this point. And you can also read my articles, which are weekly. They come out on Saturday for Rotoballer, discussing all these injuries as well as more.
All right, I'm Ariel Cohen, and you can read my work over at Fangraphs, Sportsline, and Rotoballer. You can follow me on Twitter at ATCNY, and you can listen to me every week here on Beat the Shift podcast presented by Fangraphs. All right, we'll be back next week with more as we get set for this stretch run in baseball here. Month left to go. Go win some hardware. Go take down your championships in your league, and we'll help you as much as we can along the way. All right, we'll see you next time, guys. Take care.
Thanks for listening to the Beat the Shift podcast presented by Fangraphs. Follow us on Twitter at beat_shift_pod.